For today's agenda, quick intro to ourselves, to UMH. Then we're going to talk about digital product shadow as a challenge at first, and then pretty much the use case as a solution to it. And then we're going to jump into what you will have to take care of to actually set such a use case up. So what data sources do you have to integrate? What data will you need? And we will take a look at the use case. And then I will also share with you pretty much, as always, the templates that we use. So all of the integrations, all of the dashboards and so on will be then freely available afterward. And at the end of the session, there will be a Q&A. So please don't forget to throw your questions into the chat at any time. This session is for you and for you only. So feel free to get as much as possible out of this.
It should be interactive. It should not be like 1 hour we are just talking. Should be ideally incorporated by your feedback and concerns. Yeah,
exactly. Rather a conversation than just a monologue here. Cool. So for the people that are new here, so this is our 5th webinar. We do it like every couple of weeks, months. And then we present our latest, greatest use case, all new UMH features that we're super proud of. This time, as said, is a digital product shadow. I will just quickly introduce myself, hand over to Alex, and then we just go into a couple of very short slides. So my name is Matthias. I'm an account executive at UMH, mechanical engineer from background, then spent 5 years at McKinsey doing digital transformation back and forth. And now very proud and happy to take over more responsibility than just PowerPoint and throw something over the fence. So I'm supporting pilots, scaling of our customers and so on. And on the side, of course, all the templating, best practices that we build up as UMH is also on my daily schedule.
So Matthias is not just a plain salesperson. So he really takes all the responsibility doing like the engagement. This is what we're trying to do in any case. And I'm really happy that we have him on the team. I'm Alex, co-founder and CEO, mechanical engineering background, then transitioned into system integration for 2 years in 2018-19 with Jeremy, that I think a lot of you actually know. And then we are fed up with system integration, not just kidding, but we then understood there's a product needed to connect data from the shop for reality to IT applications and vice versa. This is the UMH, building it since 4.5 years now. And therefore really proud what we could show today. And thank you for all the preparation, Matthias.
I hope you can see my screen.
Yeah, this is the case. Perfect. Then let me just quickly dive into a bit of the intro. I think some of you people are not familiar to UMH, so I would like to give you a 5-minute intro of where we're coming from, what we did. So as Alex already mentioned, we're coming back from system integration back in the day from large consulting projects, which promised huge digital transformation impact. And Alex and Jeremy were pretty much proving the concept. I was also a lot of times there helping guys on the ground. So what we did was pretty much really, retrofitting machines, connecting machines, seeing the different system infrastructure and so on, and then trying to get out of this data mess some insights that can be later on translated into initiatives, operational excellence measures, and so on.
So we try to focus on the application, but understood that actually the data plumbing was the harder part and the rather more important one.
Exactly, because as you see on the left-hand side, this is the typical standard you will see in your company, or a lot of times if your system integrator also at your customers. So we have dozens of different data sources, different protocols. Sometimes you would like to connect to a PLC directly. Sometimes it's a database, sometimes an OPC UA server, and so on. It's a huge mess. Building up the first use case is sometimes even acceptable, because you have to connect like 2-3 sources. Some of the stuff's already standardized. But if you would like to create another use case, maybe besides OEE, also something for energy monitoring, some quality process analysis dashboards, and so on, a lot of times you would have to replicate these integrations. This means you would redo all of the integration work, which takes you like 80% of the time. And then a lot of times you would sort of stack up integration with integration. It gets very confusing, very hard to maintain.
Back from industrial standard nowadays, we want to move to the unified namespace. This is our big vision that we're working towards. Unified namespace means, in that sense, single source of truth. Every single integration leads to this single source of truth. You standardize the data, model the data, and really have it there ready to be used for other integrations and sources. And you do every single one of these integrations only once, and from there on, building another use case is then very simple, sometimes even just a bit of SQL because all the data is already in the database and so on.
The fundamental idea is make it reusable. So therefore you don't, for the first integration, obviously it's the same amount of work on a point-to-point connection, but then the overlap of data that you need for your next use case is then quite high, and you can really reduce resources and time involvement per new use case and idea that you deploy. For example, the digital shadow.
So for this UMH platform, pretty much includes everything that you will need to build up the UNS and also the first use cases. Yeah, so we have the connectivity, the DataOps, message broker for buffering and just a central source for live data, the database for all of the historical data, and of course some visualization in form of Grafana, which is super flexible. You're going to see in a few minutes to build up your first use cases and provide all of the data and interfaces to actually connect also other applications to it. Yeah, maybe your MES, maybe your Power BI and others where we would like to build up different additional use cases. Yeah, we integrate slowly but surely, parallel to the automation pyramid. So not rip and replace, but really just based on business needs. Yeah, no one wants to do integration work, just for the sake of it, but really for something that actually generates cash at the end of the day. Yeah. So when you build up with UMH, the UNS, it looks roughly like the one you see on the right. So we are focused on ISO 95 hierarchy, so pretty much from enterprise to the site level, production area, production line, assets, and then down to individual sensors. So we have an easy to understand formula that also, for example, maintenance technician, automation engineer, someone from business can easily understand if they're looking for specific data points. Yeah? And with this, then we build up pretty much all the use cases that we do for our customers. In the past webinars, you've seen that we are doing OE, energy, resource monitoring, some operator input as well. So not only just visualizing, but really bringing data back into the UNS from people on the ground that know way better what's happening than a lot of times a PLC with some strange error codes. So this is pretty much where we go to. So, long list of use cases that we could present. Some of them we already did. And today's focus will be the digital product shadow. Yeah. So just to give you a bit of a few more details, because I think a lot of times the digital product shadow is more of like a theoretical concept. Sometimes
white papers.
White papers, maybe some papers from university and so on. But there is real cash, real impact behind that. Yeah. So overall, where do we actually come from that to even start thinking about something like this, and what is the concept? Yeah. So overall, a lot of times on the situation on the shop floor is that you don't have all the integrations, data points you would like to have in a very specific point. Yeah. So this means in case of quality complaints, warranty claims and so on, you don't have very much the exact data source to be a bit more proactive. You're very reactive on the quality management. When we're talking about R&D, there is a very slow feedback loop to translate any issues you would have in the production and quality back to engineering, so that product and process can be updated. And then, of course, if you want to have any deep insights, fragmented data hinders you on that. Later on, if you have quality issues or because of regulatory reasons, there's also a lot of manual effort a lot of times to create these reports, many data sources. Some of them have low data quality and so on. So this is definitely tons of issues that we could solve. Yeah. The idea is now with the digital product shadow to have all of the data for a specific product and order in one space. This means quality data, process data, machine parameters, dynamically calculated KPIs, and everything really connected to the specific work order. So you really can track it from station A to station Z, what happened when, and by that identify deviations, and then maybe quality issues you identified at the end of line. And where is it actually coming from? Was it temperature? Was it specific machine parameter that was off, and so on? Having this transparency, being able to deep dive into this can be a huge benefit. Yeah? So huge benefit is, as you see on the right-hand side, you can increase first pass yield massively if you are a bit more proactive on this. Identifying the root cause can be massively reduced compared to spending 4 weeks on actually collecting data from different sources. Could be LIMS, could be QMS, could be something from a SQL database that you have where you have production data, maybe MES and so on, different Excel reports and so on, to suddenly you have just a single dashboard to just look for the work order and then continue analyzing the data that you want. And then of course, any changes to engineering can be way quicker. So feedback loops can be reduced by multiple weeks because you don't have to do all of the manual stuff. So this is pretty much a bit of the vision. The idea of the digital product shadow and the use case we want to present today. And of course, I think we should maybe start with a few minutes talking about actually data. Yeah. So what will you need for this? So here's a bit of an extract of different tables we have within the UMH.
Don't worry, you don't need to understand and see it. We just want to guide you a little bit on the complexity that's needed. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's more about the idea that you will have to use not only tags, machine parameters and so on, but also relational data. Yeah? So for this, we have within the UMH database different tables. This includes product types. This includes work orders, shifts, and so on and so forth, just to bring up the full spectrum of data you will need into the database, into the UNS. So what do we have? We have the asset, the work order, the product type first. So the defining what do we actually produce. Then we have the product, because sometimes you will have situations where you have an order of a specific product type, 100 of these products or units in that sense. And then, of course, you would like to identify per product, was it scrap? What was the quality? What was different processes?
So
maybe
the unique identity of a product.
Exactly. We're going down to lot size 1 pretty much. And then, of course, the typical shift information, just to understand, okay, was the machine supposed to be running? Can I calculate performance, OEE, and so on? Yeah. This is pretty much where we want to go. Yeah. Then the big question is, how do we, once we have the tables, how do we get the data in there? So we could talk a lot of time, very long time about data modeling and so on, where they get the data from. But I think in your cases, a lot of times you will know. You will know what MES, QMS, PLCs, and so on you have on the ground. The question is, how do we get it in a standardized way into the use case without big hassle? For this, once you pump the data into the UNS, we have an analytics bridge, which means pretty much it's a processor which checks different payloads. If the payloads are correct and they are sent to the correct topic, specific actions will be triggered in the database, which means in that case, in some of these cases, for example, I send this to _analytics.workorder.create specific payload. The specific work order is created within the database. Then I send a starting point, an end point, and immediately have the full table populated with the data that I need. The same for product type, products, so the individual units we were talking about, shifts, and also machine states, of course. These payloads, just normal JSONs. For example, if I wanted to add an individual product unit, this is like an exemplary payload you would use, of the bridges and so on. It's open source, so you can adapt it to your specific needs. We just give you a framework you would like to start, because at least giving you an 80% version can make a huge difference to get you quickly on board.
And just give you a little bit the idea of how we structure it so that you can really adapt it to your needs and your requirements.
So we've seen a couple of industries, trust me on that. So and so far, in 90% of the cases, this was fitting already really, really well. So of course, there were maybe 1 to 2 additional data points I would like to add, but this is already a great starting point. So much to that. I think 20 minutes passed. Let me look at the timeline. I think we can pretty much jump into the use cases.
Show the use case,
Finally, we're getting there. So what we brought today. This is a starting point for the digital product schedule. What do you see here? You see on the left-hand side, the option to select a work order. Just to show you an example of the data, you will see on the right-hand side, just a simple table. We include all of the work order data, which means starting point, end point, quantity, product types, and so on. Down below, we also have work order timeline, so you can visualize or see at least like how long the orders went and so on for a specific client. So as a process engineer, I would just jump in here, select a specific work order that interests me, and then start analyzing it. In case of quality issues or in general check, maybe for compliance reason and so on, I have to do it anyways. Here is pretty much the dashboard to do it. So you see now on the top left, the selected work order, additional details about the work order, which means which machines were used. What is the process chain that we were running through with a specific order? What were the cycle times? Which area, specific asset was it? What were the start and ending times? And then, which is really cool, we combined all of these assets and these timelines, including also the machine states for these. So now you can see over here, states of all assets. This is at the top, the individual times where the work order was at which station, which means in that case, this example is pretty much tablets for a pharmaceutical line. Then we're talking about blender, granulation, milling, sieving, final blending, tableting, coating. Yeah, typically you would have also a bit of packaging in the back, but we stopped here at 5 assets. Yeah. And then down below, you have exactly for this specific asset now all of the machine states. Yeah. So was it running? Was it an operator break? Did we have any cleaning? Yeah. Did we have idle times or even machine breakdowns and so on? Yeah. So all of this is then here immediately visualized. And by that, then also you can immediately calculate the overall cycle time for the specific product, any deviations you had from here on and so on, which is then super cool, of course, for any accounting folks at the top if they want to check, okay, how much time was actually spent on this order, and for process engineers on the ground, here's additional information. So you see these rows are automatically populated, also automatically generated. So for example, if you have the longer process, you could also add additional rows automatically. And if you go in here, we can, for this specific time slot, as we have the start and ending point for this one asset, can automatically calculate OEE, availability, performance, quality. Yeah, no big deal. Super easy to do cycle time as well.
I think this is also one really important point. This is like everybody perceived. So this is obviously Grafana, and everybody sees Grafana more as you need to build the visualization that you want to see once, and then need to like copy and paste and adjust it. But actually, Grafana is quite flexible on the creation of the dashboard. So you can make it actually dependent on the input data, which visualizations and panels you would like to see. Therefore, make it actually also a really good replacement for some views that you could normally see in an OSIS or in a Viva Pi system, your event frames, etc. So not only is it quite flexible on how to visualize stuff, but the visualization options that you see can also derive from the data that you put into it. And therefore, you have like a permutation of then millions of possible dashboards, which are then dynamically configured by the input data.
Yeah. So they're very flexible. Even the names here on top, can be dynamically set, which is super cool based on the asset that is then selected. And what do we have here? We have the asset type, we have the time frame, we have the work order. Perfect. We can pretty much also reference individual data points. So we can take a look at the airflow, can take a look at the temperature here, compared with additional parameters, and just see, do we see any patterns, deviations, and so on from normal, and very quickly identify where should I look into the process when I'm trying to check where the quality problem is coming from. I think for one of our pilot customers, it was actually quite interesting to see even the pretty much the steps the product went through, because sometimes the product was in rework, and then suddenly it was checked in back into the start of the production line, and it was completely intransparent. Suddenly the product came out 1 hour later, it was scheduled, and here suddenly you can see it. So you would see pretty much in that case blender, granulation, milling, sieving, and suddenly back again to blender, granulation, and sieving, and would have the full process. That would be then super cool to immediately know what's happening.
This is actually also really interesting, not only just for the process people, but also like for the controlling people. When you really want to make sure how much machine time my actual product / order actually used. So you can see reworks, you can see deviations, you can actual machine time used on a per order basis, and therefore then also create more granular and more actual controlling measures to then really make sure that your P&L looks nice on the site level. So
or you push the costs where they belong to.
Not on my factory P&L, but actually on the sales people who like switched too much in between production orders. So I need to set up my machines too often. But this is when you need to think about also who you're showing that. Then they have like radically different use cases, process improvement, or actually like improving the sales processes, increasing the planning and scheduling. So really, really important.
So this is pretty much the first view. I think it's also interesting to go a bit more, a bit deeper into the process itself. So of course you can reference additional dashboards, use some of the KPIs or like parameters, like the time frame, specifically selected order, and then use it in a different dashboard. So what we have over here is a bit of a more deep dive into the process. Once again, you see the similar overview over here, but you can select the individual asset over here. What you will see here is once again asset specific KPIs, but also for the specific time frame, different process parameters you would like to check. Yeah. In that case, very simple, ambient temperature and humidity, including some thresholds which can be set dynamically, just to check, hey, was I within bounds? Yeah. Very simple check, can be very powerful, and then just add whatever you would like to see. Yeah. In this case, end of line quality control. Yeah. How's my process looking like? This is just a simple control chart with individual tests that were done. Yeah, you don't see a timestamp over here, but just individual IDs pretty much.
Yep.
Upper limit, lower limit, and then CP, CPK. It's a lot of times very interesting to see. Yeah, can be relevant for discrete manufacturing. Yeah, we're just talking about tolerances, but at the same time for process, food and bev, can be also very interesting just to see how stable your process is. Could be temperature related, yeah, acidity levels, and so on. Yeah, so all of this can be then dynamically generated and then tracked to really understand what's happening. And I think, to be honest, like talking about what could be possible, I think we're just scratching the surface here, yeah? Because what we do the next step if I identify here something, yeah? I have see a problem with the work order, I see deviations with the process, yeah? And the next question is it only for this work order? Or is it just for every work order that I have for this specific product type? Maybe I see a pattern over the time where like, cool, I could have maybe like 3 orders back, would like to see if there's already a pattern, the trend that I see, where I should interfere and pretty much reduce all my scrap rates.
Yeah.
All of these ideas, you know, like if there's anything else you have on my mind, because I would like to immediately start building some dashboards just to really go even deeper on that, because I think there's tons and tons of potential.
And it's also not necessary then in Grafana. Yeah? So this is the beauty of the UNS. Now you create like this cascade of dashboards and analytics, but perhaps like next step is to push it to Tableau, Power BI, Click, whatever. Then really make sure that you can drill into those deviations, those cross work order product correlations, those cross product work order correlations, which you might have, so that you really make sure that you really can like visit the same problem all of different angles. And there might be also a better tool for that. If you like want to create this one data set and then push it to the system where it's most usable. And this is also the beauty of the UNS, to really make sure data is then in a tool where it's then easiest to consume, not necessary because it's then only in one tool.
Yeah, and also thinking maybe a bit of a higher level. Yeah, if you standardize the data, not only here, but also the different sites, you could even do a comparison between different production lines. Yeah, over the full country, you have 3 manufacturing sites. They produce pretty much all the same, but you would like to check where is the specific product type performing better. Yeah, you could improve some of the scheduling, you could reduce your costs, maybe increase the margins and so on. Yeah. So there's a lot of thought experiments to do once you have it standardized in such a manner. Yeah. Do we have some questions?
Is the dashboard available somewhere with sample data? Yeah, perhaps we can also show a little bit the sampling that you did. So we will provide everything after the workshop as usual. So there you can then create the panel JSONs from Grafana. You see the generation of the data, then we do it in Node-RED. Yeah. So just a little bit of a mock data that you then also can consume and use. So feel free then to redo it. Yeah.
Yeah. While we're waiting like 1 to 2 minutes for questions, I would love to do a poll because I would like to understand where you from the community are pretty much standing at the moment. So if you would be so kind. So do you see it? Perfect. So how are you tackling product tracking currently? Yeah. I would really like to understand if you're doing currently within the MES, doing manually with some Excel extracts, a lot of emails back and forth. If you're already maybe using an IoT platform or UNS, so something where data is already aggregated, somewhat standardized, or if at the moment typically you don't even have time for that. So maybe you do it sometimes if you have a warranty claim, customer complaints, and so on. Yeah, it would be super interesting to see where you currently stand for your customers.
Can anybody select something? Looks good.
Host and panelists can't vote, Alex.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can't. Too bad.
Cool. Was there a question?
And there was one more. Yeah. So just to confirm, are you dashboards from SQL tables you showed earlier? Are you using UMH to populate those tables? This is correct. But you can do a little bit of a deep dive in one corresponding table or visualization to just show that. Yeah.
Yeah. So we are referencing to the asset table over here. Yeah, and from there on, just take tags for this specific time frame and use this to populate this data. Yeah. So all of the logic behind it, querying data and so on is done within SQL. In the background, we have a Postgres with time series add-on named scalable, and are very flexible now to do whatever you want with typical time series and relation and data. Benefit of SQL is a lot of people already know it. I think it's probably older than we evolved.
Yeah, but this is also the beauty of now generative AI. So like one of the use cases where it really already provides value is taking like the schemas that you can also like the one that Matthias was showing as a picture. You can take that as an input for like a large language model, then push it also with the human age specific data model, and then just let it create the panels. And I think this was all created via ChatGPT.
Yeah, like the 80% of it, and then of course you do some customization just to get it right. Yeah, but overall starting point with ChatGPT is amazing. Yeah, especially as in the management console we have the initial query, so how to get this single data point you want, and from there on just a matter of aggregations with additional data points you want to combine to it and so on. Yeah, so very quickly you can get something done. It's cool.
Nice.
Yeah, how about results of the poll? Do we have some answers?
Okay,
perfect. Thank you much. So I'm actually surprised that some people apparently have the capacity to do it.
But it depends also on the depth. Yeah. So if I already read here within the MES, I'm quite sure that the MES then has perhaps this. It doesn't have the depth normally on all the process information to really make sure that you can drill down onto the last little bit of information. Yeah. So perhaps you have then lucky you on the MES selection, but I think this is then really also a dimension of quality and depth. How you do it.
So if you have it really well done, also the question is then sometimes how much time do you have to maybe customize it, go even deeper? You have to have need additional help, or pretty much limited by the tool. I see a lot of people do it maybe because of this also manually, or probably also because of lack of data points, data sources. And also surprisingly, many people already use IoT platforms or the UNS in that sense, which is really cool to see the shift over there. Yeah.
That's mainly manually individual data access. The reality that we also see that then the collection goes on, select an excerpt from an MES, get to the machines, perhaps also create from this local historian or whatever you have as an extension, create there the logs, and then your favorite tool of Excel is now to shine, and let it run.
Yeah, and also a lot of expert knowledge that you need. Yeah, because if you have in a 1 hour historian hundreds of tags, you definitely have to know where to look for.
Yeah, but the problem, you can't reuse then whatever you did. Yeah, so this is a once-off crafted analytics. So we can understand. There was one follow-up question. How do you handle loss of messages or data during the population of the dashboard tables, and data needs to be retransmitted from the historian? So data in a transmission loss is actually unusual. So as soon as we get the information from the source system, which might be historian, like I think we're referencing to, or might be a PLC or IoT sensor or whatever, it goes to Kafka. And from Kafka, it's then also retained in there. So if there's a connection outage or whatever, it's persisted to log, and therefore undestructible until you destructed the hard disk, then it also gets lost. But from there, as soon as the connection is back up and running, it gets redistributed and restored into the Postgres, and from there it's then asset compliant and safe. But it's also overwritable in the sense, so if you want to have it, you can also redo some parts of the information schedule. So if it's, for example, a wrong machine state, like Matthias also showed in the last webinar, so you can go in there and overwrite this unknown stop with maintenance. You can overwrite this unknown stop with changeover or whatever. So you can also let those analytics be populated also again with more recent and more granular information, perhaps from a shop floor worker. And perhaps if you want to rerun a certain historian query, you can also redo that. But we estimate that this connection is then stable or data is then lost, but then you need to perhaps also stop the production in some cases. If the historian is stopping data for quality reasons, you might not want to do that.
Yeah. So Kafka center point, and from there on, just at one point it will go pretty much there. Could be cloud, could be the Postgres that we have. So looking a bit at the time, I think it's now also interesting for you a bit to see how to actually make this happen. So for this, I prepared pretty much a bit of an instruction. As usual, you will get a link to a Notion page, which includes in general the instructions, how to do it, of the templates. Templates will include of course the Grafana code, it will include the Node-RED code, because we created here a simulator where we see, maybe just zoom in a little bit, so it's a bit easier for you. So here we have individual assets, Blender, granulation, and so on, with the code and the payloads that we create to run the simulator. Yeah. So once you set this up, start it at the top left, you will have tons of data just to see, visualize, and play around, including process data, work order data, and so on. And last but not least, for this, of course, you will need the UMH instance running. So over here in our demo instance, we will then create MQTT to Kafka Analytics Bridge, which pretty much captures all of the data that we created in Node-RED and brings it to Kafka, and then later on brings it also then to the Postgres into the right tables. At the same time, also, of course, checks the format. Yeah. So if you fiddle around a little bit with the payload, you might see any errors coming up and so on. This is why we just pretty much do the schema checks. Yeah. Do we create a proper work order with all the information, or do you pretty much create something that's not aligned with your requirements? Then it just gets dropped. You get an error message and so on. Yeah. So this is included in these bridges here.
There was one more question regarding if we follow S88, I guess it's referring to ISA88, and I guess therefore you were referring to like the specific process steps inside, like setting up and whatever, like these classical process steps. So I think we are not 100% easy on the demo on that, but you can implement it like that. So like these specific states that the product can go through, and you define the process by yourself. So therefore, it's up to you if you follow ISA 88 on that. We're definitely following ISA 88 and ISA 95 on the specific location tags. Like we always do enterprise site area line, and then ISA 88 is then more process related. But yeah, we follow it on the process level. You as a user define the steps, and then you can also follow ISA 88 on that.
Yeah. So this would be a huge, pretty much JSON payload, including the work order, all of the process steps, the assets that you're going through, and then you can reference it flexibly to create these dashboards automatically.
Yeah.
Could be a new table, could be existing work order table.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a matter of it usually then starting at this, it depends. Yeah. I think this is so far pretty much the most important part. So I would use a couple of minutes for Q&A, maybe some war stories from our side if there is nothing coming in.
Yeah. So you already get the questions already on the fly, but if there's more, happy to take them also. Q&A, there's one specifically. Do data from the sensors to MQTT broker, then to Kafka, or to Kafka directly? So it depends. It's the engineering answer. Is always like, so data can be either pushed to our MQTT broker that we have internally, or as soon as we fetch it. So like if you have like a T sensor that pushes to MQTT broker, it goes to MQTT, then to Kafka, from Kafka to Postgres, and then they're then pushed or like pulled to Grafana. But the normal way is actually you bypass MQTT and directly with our Bentos, soon to be announced UMH core, which will be also like a huge thing in its own. We will fetch the information from the sensor/PLC, harmonize it, model it, and then push it directly to Kafka. From there, it goes to Postgres. So there are multiple ways. MQTT we can see more as like an ingress layer, like for push information to, but it's not part of the critical path, rather an option for us.
Yeah. So Kafka is the centerpiece just because of retention, stability, scalability.
Like the questions that people actually ask. So why we do it exactly like that? Yeah. Ensure order, ensure back pressure can be done, etc. PP, so that you
and flexible retention times. Yeah, there are data points you would like to just have in the backlog for like 6 hours maybe, or sometimes 7 days, depending also sometimes on your internet. If you have a connection to a cloud instance, depending on the region, you might have outage of internet for a couple of hours, minutes, or up to days. In that case, you would have data within Kafka for 7 days. Once the connection is back up, Kafka is sending all of the data through whatever data component you set up, data flow to the next data source. Could be cloud, could be cold storage in some cases as well, or any third-party systems. Only once in the correct order. So also ERP data can be moved like that. So you don't have to be scared that some transactions are not coming in the right order, because of course this is the most critical part. If some of it is not complete or in the wrong order, everything breaks down. This for this, Kafka has pretty much all of the measures.
There was another question on UMH core, which I just referenced to. So can you share some more details about the upcoming UMH core? So So UMH Core is a really, really important step for us, and it actually does two things. The first one is actually make it even faster. So like we currently rely as the underlying technology for the UMH on Kubernetes, who, as soon as you set up a new PLC, schedules a new container, which job is it then to fetch the information from that PLC and push it to the UNS, which is also a container in a Kubernetes cluster. This is really powerful and also highly scalable, but it has also a little bit the downside of being it's eventually consistent. So therefore it can also take a few seconds to schedule something. And this is a little bit annoying as a technical person. I want to be it swiftly, 100 milliseconds and have it out there. So this will be once. And then secondly, we also consolidate actually the data aggregation and the UNS part into one single Docker container versus having multiple Docker containers. So there's no need. It uses underlaid S6 as a process management. So it's also still segregated. So all those specific Bentos deployments and Kafka inside will not influence each other. But it will also make it way easier to install. You can now just take a Docker container on your laptop, deploy it there. You can have it on an edge device who has a Docker management software on it like Portainer, put it there. So we make it actually way easier and way more accessible to use UMH on the UNS data aggregation part of it. So it will be really nice. Yeah. Dev team is working hard on it, and I'm really looking forward to it.
Yeah, especially when it comes to segregated networks. So we used to have UMH Lite, but now with UMH Core, including Kafka, will be very, very cool to have this data retention on the edge wherever you would like to have it, and then move it pretty much to a central instance within the database and Grafana.
So the goal is to create the most advanced edge gateway ever on that. So like really crossing that bridge of you have this classical tools which pull data and push it somewhere. Then you have this now huge UNS infrastructure, so we have a message broker in it, but really combine the strengths of that into the most hopefully scalable and easiest to use edge component ever. And can't wait to get your feedback on that.
Yeah, for this, feel free to join our Discord community. Jeremy and the team posting the latest and greatest updates there. If you are open to be a beta user, feel free. This is exactly the place to be then. And you can try it out, provide feedback, also provide ideas and so on. Always looking forward to use your input to actually create the best possible product, because we're not doing it just for the sake of being busy, but really to solving your problems, and you know better than we could ever do what's actually important.
Nice. Yeah, really good answer if you're brave enough. Or just kidding. So it's a beta, so expect something to go wrong, but this is also why we open source. We don't want to gatekeep a product and then release it in fall or whatever. Like, this is not what we like to do as a company. We release a product as soon as it's ready, and then you can feedback on that, and we can really shape the product as it's in the making, versus then to have like a quarterly release schedule, and then it's too slow, too inflexible. This is why we open source, and that's why we're building on top of the community.
Yeah. Cool. So anything else you have on your mind on Digital Product Shadow? Are you actually happy now with this? Would you say Alex back in the day, 5 years ago, would have been very happy about this?
Yeah, Alex back in the day was, I think, maximum confused about actually the use case of Digital Product Shadow. He was confused by all these white papers and industry associations pitching that. So I think it's way clearer now, and it's also way more technically and way more approachable for me. And I could now take that and go to the Learning Factory and pitch it to customers and users back then. So really nice iteration. Yeah. Thanks to you and the solution engineering team.
Yeah, thanks to Sebastian, Max, that were specifically working on this. Huge effort, but I think it was very well worth it, because so far I've seen it mainly in mockups. So I've seen very nice concepts, but never actually a template that you could implement today in your home lab or in your factory. So also shout out to dev team. I think they also were like 1 to 2 quick fixes we need for that. So I think please give it a try, use it, provide feedback in Discord. Happy to update the template, make it even better, include additional views if they are super helpful to you. And from there on, we're just going to continue to build cool use cases, present them over here, add new features, make it better.
Day by day.
Cool. Then thank you much for your time. I think if there are some more questions, then
put them in the Discord. Perhaps it's also save them and put them in the Discord so that we have some new happy users there.
Please do. So thanks for joining, and looking forward to see you next time.